Welcome to Unpopular Origins, where in every episode we uncover the hidden stories behind the things we think we already know. More untold stories, more hidden contributions, and more forgotten chapters from the world. In this documentary, we uncover the forgotten history of glass. There are few materials in human history as mysterious, transformative, and beautiful as glass. Born from fire and sand, glass has traveled through the hands of emperors, scientists, merchants, alchemists, architects, and inventors. It has illuminated cathedrals, carried perfumes across the deserts, revealed invisible worlds beneath microscopes, and connected the modern planet through pulses of light beneath the oceans. And yet, despite its importance, the story of glass is rarely told as one continuous journey. This is not simply the history of a material. This is the story of civilization learning to see. Long before the first kingdoms rose from the valleys of Mesopotamia, before pyramids pierced the Egyptian horizon, before Rome, before Islam, before modern science, glass already existed in nature. In the violent heart of volcanoes, molten lava cooled so rapidly that it hardened into a dark, glossy substance we now call obsidian. To ancient humans, obsidian must have seemed almost supernatural. It looked like stone, yet reflected light like water. More importantly, it shattered into edges sharper than metal. Early hunter-gatherers shaped obsidian into blades, spearheads, and tools more than 100,000 years ago. In many ways, humanity's relationship with glass began not as decoration, but as survival. Nature created other forms of glass as well. Lightning striking sand fused the earth into delicate glass tubes called fulgurites. Meteor impacts melted entire landscapes into glass-like substances under unimaginable heat and pressure. Long before humans learned to create glass, they were already surrounded by its mysteries. But eventually, somewhere in the ancient world, humanity discovered something extraordinary. Sand could be transformed. Most historians believe the first artificial glass emerged in ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt around 3,500 BCE. No one knows exactly who discovered it. Perhaps it was accidental. Perhaps a craftsman noticed strange, glossy residue forming inside a furnace while firing pottery or smelting metal. Whatever the origin, the discovery changed history forever. The basic ingredients were surprisingly simple: silica sand, soda ash, and lime. Under intense heat, these materials fused into a liquid that could cool into a solid unlike anything else in nature. The earliest glass was not transparent. It was often cloudy, colored, and difficult to shape. But to ancient civilizations, it was astonishing. It looked like precious stone born from fire itself. At first, glass was rare and incredibly valuable. Craftsmen shaped it into beads, amulets, jewelry, and ceremonial objects. In some societies, colored glass rivaled gemstones in worth. The Egyptians, fascinated by vivid blues and greens, associated glass with divinity and eternity. Many early glass objects were buried in tombs alongside kings and nobles. By around 1500 BCE, Egyptian and Mesopotamian artisans developed one of the earliest sophisticated glassmaking methods: core forming. A temporary core made from clay and organic material was shaped into the inside of a vessel. Molten glass was then wrapped around it while still glowing hot. After cooling, the core was scraped away, leaving hollow containers for oils, perfumes, and medicines. The results were remarkable. Swirling threads of white, yellow, and cobalt blue decorated tiny vessels that still survive thousands of years later. These were not merely containers. They were luxury objects, symbols of status, power, and technological mastery. As Bronze Age civilizations expanded, glass began traveling across the ancient world through trade networks. One of the greatest discoveries proving this came from the Uluburun shipwreck off the coast of modern Turkey. Dating back to the 14th century BCE, the ship carried raw glass ingots, colored turquoise, and deep cobalt blue. This revealed something extraordinary. More than 3,000 years ago, glass was already an international commodity. Knowledge traveled with merchants, techniques moved with empires, and gradually the craft spread throughout the Mediterranean world. Among the peoples most associated with the spread of glassmaking were the Phoenicians, the great maritime traders of the ancient Near East. According to a famous Roman story recorded by Pliny the Elder, Phoenician sailors once cooked beside a beach using blocks of natron to support their pots. The heat supposedly fused the sand and natron together, creating glass. The story is likely mythical, but it reflects an important truth. The Eastern Mediterranean became one of the earliest great centers of glass production and trade. From Syria to North Africa, from Egypt to Greece, glassmaking knowledge continued to evolve. But the greatest revolution in glass history was still to come. Around the 1st century BCE, somewhere in the Eastern Roman world, likely in Syria, a revolutionary invention appeared: the blowpipe. For the first time in history, craftsmen could gather molten glass on the end of a hollow metal tube and inflate it with human breath. Glassblowing changed everything. What once required painstaking labor could now be created quickly, efficiently, and in endless shapes. Cups, bottles, bowls, lamps, and containers could be produced on a scale never before imagined. The Roman Empire transformed glass from an elite luxury into an everyday material. Suddenly, ordinary people could own glass. Roman craftsmen experimented constantly. They developed mold-blowing techniques, engraved decoration, colored mosaics, and increasingly transparent glass. Roman bathhouses and villas began using glass windows, even though they remained imperfect and cloudy by modern standards. Major glassmaking centers emerged throughout the empire, especially in Syria and Egypt, where the traditions of earlier civilizations merged with Roman industrial power. Glass became part of urban life itself. It held perfumes, medicines, wine, oils, and cosmetics. It illuminated homes through oil lamps. It decorated palaces and temples. And yet, after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, much of Europe entered instability. But the story of glass did not end. In many ways, it was only beginning. The Byzantine Empire preserved much of the Roman glass tradition in the East. Churches glittered with mosaics and hanging glass lamps, keeping ancient techniques alive. Then, in the 7th century, a new civilization rose across the Middle East and North Africa, the Islamic world. What followed would become one of the greatest artistic and scientific eras in the history of glass. From the 8th century onward, cities like Damascus, Aleppo, Samarra, and Fustat emerged as global centers of glass production. Muslim craftsmen inherited Roman and Persian techniques, but they did far more than preserve them. They transformed them. Travelers such as the great Moroccan explorer Ibn Battuta described Damascus as a city famous for its glassmaking. Syrian glass became so admired that merchants across Europe and Asia competed to obtain it. Excavations have uncovered Syrian enameled glass from the 13th and 14th centuries as far away as Sweden, Russia, and China. This was not a regional craft. It was a global industry. Islamic glassmakers perfected free-form glass blowing, mold blowing, engraving, wheel cutting, thread decoration, and double stamping. Their workshops produced bottles, flasks, goblets, lamps, vases, and perfume containers of astonishing sophistication. In Abbasid Iraq, the city of Samarra became famous for intricate cut glass and mosaic glass known as millefiori. Delicate perfume bottles in blue and green glass reflected both artistic beauty and advanced technical skill. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the city of Fustat became one of the medieval world's greatest glassmaking centers. Here, artisans mastered one of the most beautiful decorative techniques ever invented: luster glass. By painting metallic oxides such as silver and copper onto glass surfaces and firing them at carefully controlled temperatures, craftsmen produced shimmering effects that looked almost like liquid gold. The Islamic world's understanding of chemistry and materials science was centuries ahead of much of medieval Europe. But perhaps one of the most important contributions of Islamic civilization was not decorative. It was scientific. In Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain, glassmaking flourished in cities like Almeria, Malaga, and Cordoba. Among the remarkable figures associated with this world was Abbas ibn Firnas, a 9th century scholar, inventor, and experimenter. He studied crystal cutting, optics, and magnification. He explored how glass could bend and manipulate light. According to historical accounts, he even attempted human flight using artificial wings. These investigations into lenses and optics would eventually contribute to the development of eyeglasses, microscopes, and telescopes centuries later. In many ways, the Islamic Golden Age turned glass from a decorative material into an instrument of knowledge. By the late Middle Ages, Europe began absorbing these innovations through trade and cultural exchange. No city benefited more than Venice. Positioned between Europe and the Islamic world, Venice became the great commercial bridge of the Mediterranean. Venetian merchants imported luxury glass from the East and gradually learned the techniques behind it. By the 13th century, Venice had become Europe's dominant glassmaking power. To protect trade secrets and reduce fire risks, the Venetian government moved glass production to the nearby island of Murano in 1291. Murano became legendary. Its craftsmen developed cristallo, an exceptionally clear glass unlike anything Europe had seen before. They created delicate goblets, intricate chandeliers, mirrors, and decorative masterpieces prized by kings and nobles across the continent. Venetian authorities guarded glassmaking secrets fiercely. Skilled artisans were often forbidden from leaving the Republic. Glass had become not only an art form, but a strategic industry. At the same time, another extraordinary use of glass was transforming Europe. Stained glass windows. In the soaring Gothic cathedrals of medieval Europe, colored glass became theology made visible. Sunlight passing through stained glass filled churches with radiant blues, reds, and golds. Biblical stories unfolded across enormous windows for populations who often could not read. Buildings like Chartres Cathedral and Sainte-Chapelle turned glass into sacred light itself. For medieval worshippers, these glowing windows must have felt like glimpses of heaven. Then came a revolution that would reshape humanity's understanding of reality: the scientific revolution. Glass became the foundation of modern science. Without precision glassmaking, some of humanity's greatest discoveries would have been impossible. Improved lenses led to spectacles, allowing people to correct their vision. Soon afterward came telescopes and microscopes. Galileo pointed glass lenses toward the sky and observed moons orbiting Jupiter, challenging humanity's understanding of the cosmos. Johannes Kepler refined optical theory. Antony van Leeuwenhoek used microscopes to reveal microscopic life invisible to the naked eye. Through glass, humanity discovered both the vastness of space and the hidden complexity of life itself. Glass had become an extension of human vision. The Industrial Revolution transformed glass once again. Mechanized factories, coal-powered furnaces, and new manufacturing processes allowed glass to be produced on an enormous scale. Glass windows became larger and cheaper. Storefront displays changed urban shopping. Greenhouses transformed agriculture and botanical science. Bottles revolutionized medicine and transportation. Cities grew brighter, cleaner, and more transparent. New forms of lead crystal introduced exceptional brilliance and clarity, making glassware a symbol of refinement and luxury. By the 19th century, glass was no longer rare. It was everywhere. Then, in the 20th century, glass reshaped the modern skyline. Advances in engineering created tempered glass, laminated safety glass, reinforced architectural glass, and massive curtain wall systems. Skyscrapers covered in reflective glass rose above cities around the world. Glass became the symbol of modernity itself. Clean, minimal, technological, global. At the same time, glass entered entirely new realms of science and communication. Fiber-optic cables made from ultra-pure glass began carrying information through pulses of light beneath oceans and continents. The modern internet depends upon them. Smartphones, televisions, laboratory equipment, satellites, and spacecraft all rely on highly engineered forms of glass. The same material once shaped into tiny perfume bottles in ancient Egypt now connects billions of people across the planet. Even humanity's exploration of the universe still depends on glass. Modern telescopes, such as the James Webb Space Telescope, use advanced mirrors and optical systems descended from thousands of years of experimentation with light and transparency. And perhaps that is what makes the history of glass so extraordinary. Glass is both ancient and futuristic, fragile yet enduring, simple in ingredients, yet infinitely complex in possibility. It began as melted sand in primitive furnaces beside ancient rivers. It passed through Roman workshops, Abbasid palaces, Venetian studios, Gothic cathedrals, scientific laboratories, and industrial factories. It helped humanity preserve beauty, spread trade, advance science, understand light, and eventually build a connected global civilization. The story of glass is not merely the story of a material. It is the story of human curiosity itself. A story of civilizations learning not only how to shape sand with fire, but how to see the world more clearly than ever before. If this story sparked your curiosity, then you're exactly where you're meant to be. Because this is just the beginning. There are countless untold histories, forgotten ideas, and hidden truths still waiting to be uncovered. And we're just getting started. So, if you found this exploration fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment with your thoughts. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because the next story might surprise you more than you expect.